Hello, listeners. Coming back from the holidays, Dalton and I decided to record virtually, and we ended up having a little bit of technical difficulties, so the sound quality is not as nice as it normally is, but the episode is still really fun. I hope you enjoy it. Cheers.
Fantasy and Some Flights, exploring the realms of beer, board games, books, and bourbon.
Welcome to another episode of the Fantasy and Some Flights podcast. I'm Nelson.
I'm Dalton.
And today we are here talking about gateway games. So games that you can show your friends that don't necessarily play a lot of games, that will get them hooked and reel them in and play more games. And
That's
then
right.
soon they'll be like us, where they just own way too many games. And, just it's really sad, actually. It's a
just
sad
gets
spiral. It just gets unhealthy.
That's right. Yeah. The DARE program is watching you.
Yeah, they're adding that to the list of items that they
right.
service. Yeah.
That's right.
But yeah, so we're going to talk about gateway games. But before that, we're going to do an icebreaker. And first of all, we're going to talk about what we're drinking. So, Dalton, what are you drinking tonight?
I am.
Sorry, I didn't bring you a beer, by the way.
That's all right. We decided after the holidays, this is our first time recording after it. We decided it would be best to do it mobily, so we're both on Zoom again. So as a result of that, I did not bring Nelson a whiskey. He did not bring me a beer. But Nelson, to my great pride, has actually chosen a whiskey of his own.
I have,
which is really exciting. I chose a whiskey for myself, so we have an all whiskey night going on.
Woo!
So I am drinking Isaac Bowman Straight Bourbon Whiskey. It's another that is finished in port barrels. It has a really pretty, like almost starting to be like a wine-like color.
Yeah.
And a big old wooden, almost said plug. That would be inappropriate. Cork is the correct
No, it's a plug. It's a plug from now on.
A wooden plug. It has a port barrel finish, so it'll have like a really sweet sort of red fruit kind of aftertaste that's very natural. This distillery I chose because they are located in Fredericksburg, Virginia. And I used to live in Fredericksburg, Virginia. And when my dad and I were kind of like whiskey shopping over the holidays, we saw this and we were like, hey, no way. Like we used to live there, but that was before he was really drinking. And obviously it was well before I was drinking because it was like in my childhood. So that's why it ended up getting selected. That and the port barrel finish, which I really like. This distillery, the Bowman Distillery, opened the day after Prohibition ended in 1934. I thought that was
there you go.
Badass. And they were they were the only legal distillery in Virginia for many years. So anyway, in the taste, it sort of has like a fruity mash, almost like a fruitcake kind of smell. It's very earthy going on. And then in the taste, it has a very I would say it has both like a fruit forward and like a spice forward. So it has kind of like this almost like a brown sugar, like prune kind of flavor going on. And it's it almost would be like overwhelmingly sweet, except for that it also has a lot of like wood char and like oak and the black pepper flavors coming in. So it has a very strong flavor profile overall. Like it was actually almost a little too like heavy for me at first. And so I chose this one specifically for this episode because I felt like last episode I was kind of like knocking a little bit hard on putting ice in whiskey. And so I wanted to like clear that up a little bit. Like, first of all, yeah, that's right. And I felt like that's how I kind of like said like, oh, like you should, I kind of like tipped my nose and said like, you should never put ice in whiskey or something. So just to clear that up, like whiskey should always be, I guess, enjoyed in the way that you most enjoy it. And if that's with like ice in it, like you should drink it that way, right? And if that's with water in it, you should drink it that way. If that's neat, then drink it that way. If it's with lemonade in it, then drink it that way. Just like buy a cheaper whiskey, I would recommend. But if you want to buy an expensive whiskey and put lemonade in it, like that's all up. That's your game, And so this one I drink with ice, and I do that because it has this extremely strong flavor profile that's very fruity and it's very spicy, and so it does have a lot of like layered complexity to it. But like, even for me, I think I have like a pretty decent palate at this point. It like I'm not picking up all the complexity of it because it just has these very like forward strong flavors going on, and like the very strong like fruity flavors, they're not going to be necessarily like even like toned back with water, and that's like great. It'll still be very strong. And so I enjoy this one like with a little bit of ice because it brings the heat down. It brings like it sort of like mellows the fruity flavors, and it helps it be maybe like it's more technically complex, neat, but it's probably more comfortable and enjoyable with ice, if that makes sense. And like towards the end, after it's been like, half the ice cube is melted or something like that, it's like been watered and ends up being almost kind of like a mixed drink of its own.
Oh, very
nice. It does have still these like very strong flavors that are not going away just because there's melted water in it. I would suggest if you're gonna enjoy whiskey with ice, I would suggest getting some of the molds that let you have like a bigger cube or a sphere or something like that. That'll make it so that if you drop a couple of ice cubes in it, they'll melt very quickly. That's like a surface area to volume issue, right? And so they'll melt very quickly, and your whiskey will become watered down very quickly, and it may not be as like cold, and it'll just skip right to being like very watery. Whereas if you have like a larger ice cube and you're sipping on it throughout that time, as it's like watering down, you're also like sipping on it and kind of like pulling that out, right? So it doesn't become so diluted so quickly. And so mine are just like little spheres that are, I don't know, the size of a golf ball or something like that, and that works pretty well.
I saw one on Facebook one time that was like a Death Star was the whiskey. I was like, ooh, I want that. But then you told me
really
not
cool.
to drink it with ice, so I never got it.
So you didn't buy it?
No,
I'm sorry, buddy.
I'm just kidding.
You can get your Death Star ice cubes.
Oh, yes,
There's a way to enjoy whiskey with them. So anyways, like I said, with the like really strong flavors and everything, I think this is a really enjoyable one. It's probably a 3 cheers for me. I think I will always enjoy something that has a port barrel finish. Like that's just like very, because my first was a Angel's Envy, which has like the sherry finish, and so like those types of things are just kind of like near and dear to me. So yeah, I'm really enjoying this one.
Nice.
What are you drinking tonight?
So I also chose a bourbon. So this is Horse Soldier Premium Straight Bourbon Whiskey. And I feel like I'm at the point in my bourbon drinking career that it was okay for me to buy this because I bought it exclusively off the label. So it's actually like a metal label, which is pretty cool. I don't know if you can see it, but like,
oh, I can't. It's like stamped almost like a metal
it's like it's
label.
stamped on it, and I was just like, well, this is cool, and so
it has a horse on it, which is very Kentucky.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so I bought this probably about a week ago, and I'm enjoying it. I do really like it. So I looked it up. This is from a distillery founded by a bunch of Green Berets.
Yep, the special forces.
Yeah, the special forces.
But
they who invaded North Afghanistan after 9/11. So they fought on like this rigorous terrain, and one of the special operations team actually rode wild Afghan horses to get through the dangers, and that's what gave them the nickname Horse Soldiers, and that's what they named their distillery after. So it's
that is super cool.
Horse Soldier Premium, and I didn't know that before I bought it, but like I'm glad glad I know it now.
Yeah.
So this is a straight bourbon, which means that it's been aged for at least 2 years. And I think in the bourbon episode you said that if it's aged between 2 and 4, they actually have to put the number of years on it that it's been aged.
That's correct, yeah.
And
yeah, that's correct.
So they didn't put the number of years, but they said it's aged for a minimum, or it's been aged for more than 2 years. It's what it says on the bottle. Does that mean it's been aged for more than 4? Or did they find a loophole in that rule and it's probably been aged in between 2 and 4?
I feel like it's probably between 2 and 4.
I don't know why you would say more than 2, and it, like, why would not just say more than 4 if it's
right? And if they had more than 3, wouldn't they say more than 3?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
like although 3 is kind of a weird number, so I don't know. I feel like they probably did like 2.5 or something like that.
Okay. Yeah. So it's a straight. It's probably been aged for about 2.5 years ish. It was aged in a charred new American oak barrel. It does say on the bottle, forged in fire, which I think is badass. I have no idea what that means, but cool. Like,
right. In order to be bourbon, it has to be in a charred barrel, but it sounds really cool if you say forged in fire.
Yeah, they got me. So
these guys have A+ marketing.
Yes, absolutely. They have 3 Horse Soldier bourbons. This is the lower end because I didn't want to spend more than $45 on a bourbon. Because I feel like I would not be able to taste the difference at this point in my life.
I try not to spend more than 45, except for on like one bottle. I allow myself like one bottle that's above that.
And that makes sense. This is it's like 43.5%. So I tried it neat. I didn't love that. It still hurt a little bit. I tried it with an ice cube, and then tonight I'm drinking it with a splash of water. I do think that the splash of water with this one is really nice. Like I can actually like really taste it. It would taste kind of like caramel and vanilla. And like it smells almost like a sour apple, or not like a sour apple, but like that. It smells like an apple, so it's like crisp almost. So I've really enjoyed it, especially just with the splash of water that I've been trying tonight. So this is gonna be a good one. It's definitely better than the Bone Snapper that I tried. I think 2 episodes ago. I don't quite remember. Our last virtual episode is when I tried the Bone Snapper, and I had a glass of this, so the horse soldier, and then I had a glass of the bone snapper, and I was just like, wow, that is not as good. Like, I was like, ooh, that hurts. So,
Yeah.
but so this one's really good. I think I have no idea. I think I said before I don't really know what I like in a bourbon, but this is definitely at least a 3 cheers, and I'll revisit it
Cool.
more when I've had more bourbon because I could see this being a 4 cheers for me because
Awesome.
especially with the water because I'm really it's just like it just tastes good like and that's like it sounds weird to like say it with those adjectives but it's something that I've never like I've enjoyed bourbon before but I've never been like this tastes good like so
Yeah. Yeah.
so it's kind of
Yeah.
interesting so
No, I totally understand. It's a good distinction between like, am I enjoying exploring the flavors? Because sometimes I do taste bourbons that way. That it's like
yeah
I'm enjoying the flavor profile, but it doesn't actually taste good. You know.
yeah
So, and so I'm really glad to hear that like first of all that tastes good for you, and second of all that like the watering down is working for you. Because like I said in I think the last episode or one or two before, people that like it should be something that people try, especially like when you're first getting into bourbon, and it just helps remove like the alcohol burn, so you can kind of like actually taste what's going on.
yeah exactly yep
So
so that's what I've been drinking and I got
awesome.
a good amount more left so that's always exciting so
Yeah, hopefully we can meet in person and I can try some of it.
yes
I would
exactly
enjoy that.
yep I'll entice this. Come to me. Come to my house.
That's right. It's super effective.
I'll be there an hour and a half.
Right. Exactly.
We'll resume this recording then.
In an hour and a half.
Yeah.
It's sad how true that is. The temptation is real.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I am really enjoying it. I'm excited. I am really excited for you to try it because I want to know if I'm just like actually tasting good or if it's just like okay like
Oh yeah, yeah.
I want to see what you think because you actually have
Get
tasted a lot more of these than I have so
get the expert opinion. Yes,
yes
the connoisseur
quite
that I am. Well,
quite
we shall retire to the estate and drink the bourbon.
Oh jeez oh that's awesome let's hop into what's been on our table so what we've been
Let's do
playing
it.
recently or some topic that we want to talk about. Dalton, what's been on your table recently?
Yeah. So table for me. So first of all, it was there's been a lot of family time recently, right? So a natural time for gateway games. It's a
Woo!
very topical evening. But for me personally, besides like all the gateway games that I've been playing with family over the holidays, first thing I want to talk about game I'm most excited about from picking up over Christmas, right? I think that's an important thing to cover the first podcast episode after Christmas.
Absolutely.
Um, so I picked up Trekking the World. We talked about trekking the national
Yeah.
parks on our episode with
Charles.
Charles
Yeah.
Murs from the director of the Game Master documentary. He interviewed Charlie Bink as a part of that. Charlie Bink is the creator of Trekking the National Parks board game. Spoiler alert: he actually gets to publish that board game.
Hey.
It's actually not much of a spoiler because really, like when he
I've seen
picks
it in
up
the game
with Charlie,
store. And I've seen it
yeah,
in the
first
game
of all, I've
store.
seen it in the game store. Second of all, like when he picks up with Charlie, he's like actually already kind of producing it. He's like telling like kind of the late stages of production with
Yeah.
Charlie, like that part of the story. And trekking the national parks. The theme there is like going around the United States and exploring all the national parks. Trekking the World is kind of like the follow up to that. So it takes, I believe, if I remember right, Charlie released a second edition of Trekking the National Parks, and then this incorporates that into like another sort of sequel or follow up.
Yeah, sequel. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. And so it has very heavy like card drafting, like hand management type mechanics, and then the scoring mechanism is basically set collection. So it's a pretty low complexity. I haven't actually gotten a chance to try it yet, but I've opened it up and read through the rules, and it's a pretty simple rule book. It's pretty simple mechanics. There's only like 2 or 3 things you can do on your turn. Potentially, actually, would make a great gateway game. I just haven't played it yet, so I don't know officially.
Very
So,
nice. Yeah.
but yeah, obviously really good theming because it's basically like almost like kind of Seven Wonders type things where it's just like monuments and natural parks and like Eiffel Tower and like those types of things that are like around the world. So pretty cool theming. So I'm excited to try that. I'm excited to try it with you. I think it'll be a good like either first game of the night or like later game in the night.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it sounds interesting. Trekking the national parks looked really interesting. So I'm really interested to see what Trekking the World looks like because I do think that just like anything, designers get better over time.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes, you're first hit is your best, or your first one you put out is your best one. But a lot of the times, once you put out a sequel or something, your second game, it's going to be better because you've learned from your first game. And so I'm interested to try it. Really interested.
Yeah, for sure. When I was reading through the rule book, it looked like that was true. That it was like, okay, these are natural, very like well thought through mechanics that are kind of just
nice.
Like, fit together the way you would kind of expect. So yeah, we'll see how it turns out. I'm excited to try it. And I think it'll fit well into that, like when you have like 2 tables playing and you need to like sync back up so you can like shuffle the tables and you need something to kill like 30 minutes. I think it'll fit into that.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Well.
Yeah. So, for some reason I was expecting it to be a lot longer than that. So it's good. I do like that 30-minute time for games.
Yeah.
I think that is definitely a great sweet spot for games that aren't code names or something like that. Yeah. Something that like, I don't know if I want to genericize it to the point of it has a board, but like, a game. But no, so that's really interesting. I'm excited to try that.
Yeah, for sure. Then the other thing that's been on my table, we have will be on my table, I guess, we have Twilight Imperium planned for this weekend. We scheduled that through the Discord. I'm really excited about it because it's always exciting when I get to play Twilight Imperium. And somehow over like the pandemic, this will be like the first time because we have been playing in person. And so this is the first time we're going to try and tackle it like online. But I'm specifically excited because Twilight Imperium, I think we talked about it in the APP episode that Prophecy of Kings expansion was recently released for it. So there's like 7 new factions. There are these things called agents, which basically function as unlockable player powers, which was something that the game, or that Twilight Imperium specifically really didn't have. Like you could unlock your flagship, which had like a minor asymmetrical player power associated with it. But agents are like, if you do this thing, like you compete in this type of combat or you like complete this, I don't know, task or something like that, you like unlock this agent and that adds some sort of asymmetry to your player power. And so I'm excited for that because it'll feel like I might go out of my way to do things to kind of progress the power of my faction,
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah. So I'm excited for that. And then I think I've already talked about it, but they added back in mechs, which was something that was sorely needed because it made ground combat interesting. And they also added asymmetrical player powers back onto mechs, which they did not have in 3rd edition. So I'm really excited to. I've been very antsy. It feels. I think every time like Twilight Imperium comes up, it feels like Christmas is tomorrow kind of thing, and that's what this week is felt like. It's like, oh, we have Twilight Imperium this weekend. It's
nice.
Coming.
Yes,
it's coming.
Go. That's awesome.
And there's 7 new factions I can try and win with. I've already won with all of the existing ones.
Have you chosen a faction yet?
I have not. No, I typically with Twilight Imperium, I try to let other people choose because I play enough of it to where it's like I'll get to try all the factions eventually.
Okay.
So right now, like everybody's kind of choosing theirs, and I'll pick one later.
Okay.
But I had talked about earlier that there's one that kind of feels like it will play like the Necrovirus, and that when you attack people, you gain things, and so I might try that one. We'll see.
Cool. That's exciting.
Yeah. Excited.
Nice. I'm excited to hear what your thoughts are on the expansion. It was a huge deal online, right? Like everyone's super excited to get it, which is funny because they released, the game that requires multiple people to play the expansion during a pandemic year. So that could have been probably better timing, but people, I mean, people were really excited, and I like Twilight Imperium experts like you. I'm excited to hear your thoughts on it because I feel like Twilight Imperium is a really good game, and putting expansions out is exciting for it in the sense of like you're modifying something that's already really good. It's top 10 online, right? So it's like
because like even like Terraforming Mars, which we love, has had some of the best and also some of the worst expansions.
Yep,
right?
totally. Yeah,
it's had this huge range of success in expansions, and I think Fantasy Flights overall is pretty good at expansions. Like maybe not excellent. But like I feel like they put out pretty good ones.
They did Mother of Dragons for Game of Thrones, so that was phenomenal.
I love that one.
Yeah, that was so good. That was so much fun. So sweet.
I'm excited. Yeah, we'll see it. What's been on your table?
So typically I answer this with a lot, and I'm gonna change that and actually say not that much. So just like you, I've been kind of traveling and seeing family and friends and stuff, and we haven't been playing a lot of what I would call like gamers games. We've been doing a lot of the lighter games, the gateway games, the party games, and stuff like that. But I do want to talk about a couple of them that we played. I got a game called Blank Slate for Christmas from my sister-in-law. What the game is it's. Have you played Just One by Asmodee?
No, I've not played Just One.
So
I know the game, but I've not played it.
Yeah, so in Just One, you're working cooperatively to try and like write down a clue to try and get someone to guess a word. But if 2 people at the table wrote down the same clue, that clue gets eliminated from the pool of clues.
Hmm.
So it like you're trying to be creative, and blank slate is like the opposite of that. So basically, it gives there's a card that gets drawn, and it says like blank jam, and you all collectively write down a word that could be like blackberry or space, and you're trying to match with more people. So you're
Mm.
trying to like, and if you match with one person, you get 3 points. If you match with more than one person, everyone gets 1 point. So you're trying to
Hmm.
be like that fringe match, but also like still match with somebody. And so it's been
Yeah.
really fun. We played actually quite a bit of it. We played a lot of it when some of my family was over, and it was just kind of fun because like you could get inside jokes and stuff in there, and
Mm.
like people there that I know that had read some of the books that I had read. So I think one was Blank Ruler, and so like I tried like Lord
Mm.
Ruler from Mistborn,
Mm.
which nobody got, which was frustrating. But
Oh, I
I
would have
thought it
got
was a
that in
good
an
clue.
instant.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Shout out to our upcoming episode.
yeah, exactly.
Next
So
book episode will be a Mistborn analysis. You'll hear all
exactly.
about the Lord Ruler.
Exactly. So yeah, I guess this is a good time, Vinny, to plug it. So read Mistborn, The Final
Read
Empire.
Mistborn.
It's coming
You
out in
have
2
2
weeks.
weeks.
Exactly. It's a great book.
I bet there's some great like you wrote down Space Jam like high five across the table
Yeah.
kind of moments.
Yeah.
Where it's like you two like connected on that thing and you're like, yes, you're my best friend.
And then we started playing with a variant, which I thought was pretty cool, where you write down the word, but then also you can do like you can write down someone's name and do like
Mm.
an all or nothing. And if you get the person's name right, then you get plus 2 points. But if you don't get it, but you match with someone else, you get 0 points.
Mm.
So it's like, oh, okay,
Risky.
yeah, risky. And you played at 25, and so it's a pretty quick game. But yeah, I mean,
Gotcha.
it's like it.
It'd be fun to like enter that game and sit down with you like, okay, you and I are gonna end this game in 5 rounds.
Yeah, exactly.
Just write down what you think I'm going to do, and then we
Yeah.
each write down each other's names every round and see if we can
Yeah.
end it.
Yeah, no, we played it with my in-laws, we played it with my family, and then we played it with my cousins, and
Cool.
you worked with every group, right? It was just fun. So I'm excited
Yep.
that that's now in the rotation of those party games. So when you pull out Wavelength or Code Names or something like that, Blank Slate is definitely one that we pull out, and that's kind of the one when we had my cousins over that people were just like, yeah, let's play more Blank Slate, like let's just go, and we just kept playing and playing, and so it was a lot of fun. Like it's a fun one, definitely.
That's great.
It's a,
When you
it's
have a
a,
winner of like a word association game, I feel like that happens.
Yeah.
Where people are like, yeah, let's do it. Just
yeah,
we're
let's
a
just
couple
play again.
drinks in, let's just do it. Yeah.
Yeah, let's just play again. So I'm really excited about that. Then the other one that I wanted to talk about was a game which I don't know if it's a good game, but it's a really fun game. uh, and it's a game that one of my cousins brought, and it's called Steampunk Rally. And so have you heard of this game?
No, this is a new one for me.
Okay, so the premise is great. So basically, you're inventors from like the early 19th century, or like the 19th century, and you're like basically building a modular like craft or motorized craft to race around the track and try to be the first one to finish the race. But it's like
Okay.
you can play as like Einstein or something like that. But it's like it's a drafting game, so you have 4 cards that you draft from, and then the cards are actually like multi-purpose cards. So you can like the resources in the game are dice. So there are 3 different color of dice, and you can like discard the card to get dice to run your engine, or you can add the card, and it's just like these crazy contractions that you add onto your engine and say like, hey, if you put like a 5 blue dice here, then you get to like move 3 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, okay, if you put for every multiple of 4 that you put here, and it has like maybe 4 spots, you get to move like 2 or something. So it's like if you put 12 value of dice, so maybe you roll like 2 6s and you put 2 6s there, you get to move 6. And so it's like it's really interesting. It has like some event cards in it, but it's just like the machines that you build out, and if you go too fast, you have to like take damage, and you can like there's mechanisms to sustain damage, or if you don't have if you haven't like built up a buffer, you just have to destroy parts of your engine, which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was one of those games where mechanically I'm not sure if it's perfect. Like it's not that high. I think it's top 500 of Board
Okay.
Game Geek. But like when I was playing, I was like, this is just a lot of fun. Like you can't take it too
Yeah.
seriously because it's his dice rolling, his dice placement, and then I was just having fun playing. Like it's just like one of those games, and it's just like, okay, cool. I'm gonna look for this in a trade because it's definitely one that I don't know. It's just like the experience was just like really high for me, just because I was just like laughing and having a good time. Plus, it's like I had like 4 like rocket jets onto my like guy with
Nice.
a bicycle wheel, and it's just like it's just like hilarious like picture, almost like evolution in that sense, where you've
Yeah.
built this creation and it's just kind of fun to picture it. So, uh, but yeah, that's on the list to trade for because I had a lot of fun with it.
I mean, like obviously, I think the natural comparison would be Galaxy Trucker in terms of like I'm going to build this thing and like kind of send it around. Like which do you prefer?
Definitely Steampunk Rally. For some reason I didn't love Galaxy Trucker. I feel like
Okay.
it basically that's a really good comparison that I never thought about, but I think that the difference is like in Galaxy Trucker you're like it's a physical time, like you're actually timed to build.
Mm-hmm.
You have to sit on one of your hands and build, whereas this is a drafting mechanism, so you can like think about it a little bit more, and that's just kind of where I like to play. Those are my games that I like to play. I get stressed out when it's real time, and so I definitely like this one a little bit more than Galaxy Trucker.
Cool.
But yeah, so it was just funny. It's by Roxley Games, who did Brass Birmingham too. So
cool.
it's like the same size box. It's like really good components. The cards are like plastic cards, so they're like spill proof cards almost. So
Yeah, we always appreciate that.
we really do. But yeah, so Steampunk Rally was really good. I think I just made a post on it a couple days ago, but and not a lot of people have played it, which I can see why. It's not it's no Twilight Imperium. Like it's not gonna like satisfy, but it's like it's one of those where you can kick back and have a good time. Also, it plays up to like 7, so it's like okay, like
Wow.
and it's all the turns are simultaneous. So
That helps.
I'm not sure how much longer 7 players. I'm sure it would be longer, but we play with 4. And so like I don't know, adding 3 players, like you just draft cards and then by yourself you build your engine and then you just go and you move the spaces. And so it's like it is kind of multiplayer solitaire in that sense, but it was fun.
But like simultaneous play obviously kind of has to be.
Yeah.
If there's going to be simultaneous play, that means that like I'm not influencing your turn, therefore we can go at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there is a little player interaction. My cousin set a trap that I ran through, like on the map that you're racing through like the Swiss Alps or something. So it's like,
gotcha.
It's a crazy theme, but it was just kind of fun. Fun asymmetrical player powers too, because each like inventor has a starting card that's like pretty powerful and stuff. So if you ever like kill your inventor, you have to like go to the back of the line. So like in the race,
real strict punishment there.
Yeah. Fun stuff. So
Awesome.
we
I'm
played
excited to
that,
try it.
and I was just like, yeah, that was just like a fun one. Like it almost felt like a Quacks, a Quedlinburg, where it's like, okay, like I don't know if I care if I win. I'm just enjoying the playing, right? Like
right,
just
yeah.
kind of
Games are meant to be fun, and this one checks that box.
Yep, exactly. Yep. So that's kind of what I've been playing. Hopefully, I'll get playing a little bit more here in the future. Now that we're back quarantined at home, so. So we'll see what hits the table before next episode.
What January brings.
Yeah. Let's move. Let's do a little bit of a shout out here. Let's shout out one of the members of the Gateway Network. So the Gateway Network is a network that was put together for up and coming board game content creators, and so we are a proud member of the Gateway Network, and we have a myriad of other members. One of the things that I want to mention first is that we just put up a merchandise store. So if you want, you can go to the Gateway Network's merchandise store. The link's in our Instagram bio, and there any member of the of the Gateway Network has merchandise there. And so I really like the coasters for Fantasy and Some Flights. Those are pretty cool.
It's on theme.
Yeah, exactly.
I think my favorite was the like the child face mask that was on there. Because I think just the idea of a child putting us over their mouth almost like a filter when you and I don't have a lot of filter. I found that pretty ironic.
That's awesome. But yeah,
Yeah.
I you don't have to go buy anything. I thought it was hilarious to just like scroll through because it's a program that like puts our logo on a bunch of stuff, so you can buy a duffel bag with fantasy. I just thought that was
Yeah,
hilarious.
it was really
But
funny.
or a bed cover. I mean,
There was a throw pillow. The throw
there
pillow
was
was
a
cracking
throw.
me up.
I saw a meme the other day. It's like, if there's no place to sit, you have too many pillows. Because I feel like that's
First
a
world.
problem in my house. I have so many throw pillows.
Yeah. No place to play games. I have too many fantasy X flights throw pillows.
Which is an okay problem to have, I think. I don't know. but but yeah, let's shout out one of the members this week. So we've done a couple shout outs recently, but this week we're going to shout out Bad Board Game Covers. So Bad Board Game Covers is an Instagram account, and he hosts weekly puzzles trying to decipher distorted photos of board games. So it's kind of fun. Sometimes like they're blurry and you have to like guess on what the cover or like the box that is
Mhm.
blurred out is going to be. Or sometimes it's like a grid of 9, like the top row is 1 point, 2 points, and then 3 points for the third row. And like it's like a zoomed in picture of a board game cover, and you have to try and guess which board game it goes to. So it's like, ooh, I know that's Caverna's board. And you like, it's like a self check. It's like, oh, cool, I scored 15 points this week type thing,
Mhm.
which is just kind of fun. And he also runs like tournaments, so where people nominate some games based on a category that he comes up with. So I think the one that he just ran was kind of like the most interesting board game characters. So we would have people from the Instagram community nominate games and then tournament style like face off against each other to find the best one.
Mhm. Yeah.
And there's actually a gateway tournament starting here soon that we are participating in. And so there's going to be a game, or there's going to be a category that we're going to nominate a game for. And we're going to go up against all the other members of the Gateway Network. And you guys better go vote for our game. I don't care if it's worse than the opponents. Vote for the name, not the game. But yeah, so I don't know what the category is yet, but I'm excited to find out. Should be happening soon. And so go follow Bad Board Game Covers and
Yeah.
vote for us.
Yeah, right. I like his. A lot of times when we like plug different content, there's like a certain sort of. I want to say barrier to entry. Maybe that's not the right term, but like almost like commitment. You know, like even our stuff. Like when you listen to a podcast episode, we recognize that like it's usually over an hour of content, and like that's a big commitment. That's a lot of time out of your day, and we really appreciate that you take the time to do that. His content is not that way, right? It's like it's not a big commitment to like get involved with his content.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he posted on his story. It's a click. That
It's a click, right? And it's a lot of fun. It's very low impact. It's very easy if it's something you enjoy, just to like follow him on Instagram and kind of get access to that content. So definitely check that out.
absolutely. So that is Bad Board Game Covers. Go give him a follow and check out the next tournament and vote for us. So you want to hop into icebreakers now?
Let's do an icebreaker. My favorite part of the episode.
Really?
Well, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like a lot of times it is. Sometimes it's the flights, but like I'm the enjoyable part of the flights more than talking about it is actually drinking it. I do most of the drinking throughout the rest of the episode.
That's fair.
So,
Yeah.
but,
Okay.
yeah, I
So
enjoy the icebreakers. Are fun.
yeah, they are. They're a lot of fun. I especially like them now that they're user submitted. We have
For sure.
people submitting icebreakers, so neither one of us have a thought answer, so we kind of have to think on our feet, which is kind of fun. So,
Yeah.
so this week this icebreaker is submitted by Matt, who's one of our listeners. What thematic asymmetrical player power would you give to the classic Monopoly tokens? Those being Battleship, Boot, Cat, Race Car, Scotty Dog, Thimble, Top Hat, and Wheelbarrow, included the list because it was more difficult to find than expected. So I think this is hilarious.
This is a really good question.
This is awesome.
Honestly, an A+ question. Holy cow! And also, like, so side note. So just like a side story for a second. Like, I was at a trivia night. One of the you know how they give you the categories, and one of the categories was like board games. I was like, boom, I got this.
Got
like,
'em.
team, nobody worry, right? Like, I'm on it. It's all gonna be okay. And the question was like something like name the 4 railroad stops in the original Monopoly, and I was like, oh, come on. A fucking clue.
Russian railroads, 18XX,
One of them is
Age of
Reading.
Steam, and Reading Railroad. Yeah. Yeah.
Reading.
Those are the
Oh,
four, I'm
I
pretty sure.
never would have got
Oh, I thought you said board games, sir.
that.
Oh, that's bad. Um,
Okay,
okay,
so I think
so
the wheelbarrow. I think the wheelbarrow is my like natural pick, and its power should be if you like move past another token, you should be able to pick up that token, move it with you, and if you land on one of your properties,
oh
they have to
hell
pay
yeah,
you.
hell yeah, let's go. That'd be so sick. That'd be so sick.
You just be
Oh
rolling
yeah.
like 12, 12, 12, 12. Yes, suck it. Pick up
That'd be
everybody
so
and move
cool.
with you.
I'm landing on boardwalk again. Oh no! Oh god, no!
Please stop.
Oh, that's an awesome one. I love that. That would actually make me consider playing Monopoly. Um, I think Battleship. Anytime the person playing Battleship needs to pay somebody, they instead challenge them to a game of Battleship, and if they win, they don't have to pay. No,
You have
that'd
to
be
go
crazy.
play a separate board game of Battleship.
Oh
All
man.
right, time out, guys. We have to go. It's the 17th time this game you're playing Battleship.
Please stop. Please stop. Race car could be one. It's like you just add one to your dice roll or something like that and make it a little bit further around the track. Get that 200, that sweet $200.
Yeah, or like what's it, like the like add a die, pick two kind of thing, like pick two of three dice kind of. What would the
Oh, yeah.
thimble be? I think the thimble.
I was thinking about the thimble. I have one for the top hat. I think the top hat would be really cool to do. Like, if someone lands on your property, they pay you like 5% more. But if you land on luxury tax, you pay 20% more.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a
But
good
yeah,
one.
the thimble.
Thimble. It should be small and unsuspecting. You know, you were brave enough to pick the thimble.
Turns out I don't know the Monopoly board that well.
There's the railroads, utilities. I don't know.
And other things.
Thimble can be like there's what are they called? There's like the cards that you draw, right?
Chest or community chest and chance.
Community
cards?
chess, community chance, maybe.
Yeah, they're two.
So
They're two stacks.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't know what out of one of them the thimble draws two cards instead of one.
I like that.
I
Yeah,
think I think that would be like their little quirky power.
I like it. I like it.
So.
And then we have the two that we have left are Cat and Scotty Dog.
I feel like they should, I feel like the cat should always get out of jail free.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because it's an escape artist. I love it.
Yeah, that's like its power. It just gets out of jail free always.
That's awesome. Yep. Okay, so we got the cat, Scotty Dog.
It collects $10 anytime it passes a player or lands on a space with a player.
Yeah, there you go.
It just collects $10 from that player.
Just a quick $10.
Just everybody likes to pet a dog.
Everyone loves the dog. Yeah. Oh, I love that. That would be awesome. That'd be so much fun.
Yeah, it would be fun. Hire us. We know how to make asymmetrical player powers.
Yeah,
They're
we can do
obviously
that.
balanced.
Obviously, duh. We play tested it a lot.
A lot.
Oh, that was an awesome question. I really.
That was a heavy hitter. That was a really good.
That was a fun one.
I love that it also is like part of the theme of gateway games is getting us out of Monopoly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So this is turning Monopoly into a gateway game. We
So I
appreciate
play
it.
Monopoly. What next? No.
Right. Right. Monopoly Fantasy and some Flights version.
That'd be awesome. That'd be awesome. So speaking of gateway games, you want to hop into our main topic now?
Oh man, I'm excited too.
Okay, let's do it. So, Dalton, do you have a definition for gateway games? Like, what is a gateway game? It's like I feel like I feel like it's a term that is known inside the community, but like if you're not in the community, you're just like, I've heard of gateway drugs. What is a gateway game? Like, is that a game?
Hopefully, I think our goal as a community is that if you are not in the community, you have not heard the term of gateway game. Right?
That's fair. That's fair.
It's the game
Beginner
that we used
game.
to. Right. It's the game that this is a good intro game, you know?
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. I've used that before.
Right. I've used it too. And it's a gateway game is a game that we trick you into being a part of the hobby with. But ultimately, like we joke about it a lot, and I think I think it's a really common term because like most of the members of the community can like think back of a game that got them into the hobby. That was like their first game. That again was not Monopoly. It was not Risk. It was not Clue. Like any of like the like what the
It was a
Boomer
designer
generation.
game. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It was the first one that's like, oh, there's some like interesting mechanics here, and there can be depth, and there can be, it's
Decisions
your
and everything.
right. Yeah, it's your first whiskey that's not Jack Daniels or something.
Yeah, yeah.
There's
Not
more to it
it's
than
not a
that.
Coors Light. Yeah.
Right, it's not a Coors Light. There's actually something called craft beer, and that's what gateway games kind of teach you. I think rather than a definition, I thought of two kind of requirements maybe, and I would be interested to hear yours as compared to mine. But in
Okay.
order for something to qualify as a gateway game, I thought of two things. The first is that it must be approachable. That can encompass things like simple, short, but it doesn't have to be either of those things. There can be long gateway games, but just so long as it's approachable. And then the other thing is it must generate further interest in the hobby, and that's actually a really key
Yeah.
point for me.
Okay. Yeah, that's a really good point because you do want people to ask what is coming next. Or like you want people to say,
Mm,
I want to play that again. Or something like that where
yeah.
it has to be approachable. What I had written down is it has to have a short teach. So if you're
Hmm.
bringing someone to the table, this is their first time playing a board game, typically or historically what I've experienced when people have been playing board games with me where they haven't played a lot of like what we would classify as a board game is board games are kind of lame, they're dumb, they're not something that we that I really enjoy.
Hmm.
And I think if you go into something that takes 15 minutes to explain, they're going to have that same precedent already. And so
Yeah.
I put like if you can explain it in 5 minutes or less, you're good to go. That would be a
Hmm.
good gateway game right there. It's
Yeah.
approachable. It's like you don't want to be sitting there and explaining the rules to them for a long time. That's just
Yeah, for
not
sure.
something you want to do. So being
For
able to
sure.
quick explain it to them and hop right in.
Hmm.
Wavelength does a phenomenal job of this, right? Like it's almost like harder to explain the rules than just have them play around. Where
Hmm.
and it's just kind of there. It's like you play, you can try and explain the rules, and I've tried to explain the rules. I was just like, I've given a brief overview, and what I do is I have the new player be the last person to give a clue, and by the time it's their turn to give a clue, they know exactly how to play.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
so things like that where it's really easy to, explain. It's very approachable, makes a great
Hmm.
gateway game. Um,
Yeah, I think playing into like approachable theme can be really important. It doesn't have to be, but it can really help. Like I think when we play like Seven Wonders as like a gateway game, that one sells really well. Just because it has like really like flashy cards and it has these pretty monuments, and you're like, oh, okay, like I can see, like you can explain to someone like basically you're going to build yourself like a civilization, and that's good, and it's like, oh, okay, like I can see that playing out, and for new players who don't know what types of mechanics they like and what types of games that they like, they're actually going to rely really heavily on a theme, and so that's an area where games like Catan, can like kind of struggle where it's like, okay, what am I like doing here? That it's a kind of a hard sell to get someone sometimes to like play Catan. Once they like play it for the first time, it's like now they get it, and now it's a really good gateway game. But actually getting them to the table, theme can be a really big part of that.
yep, and that's exactly my second bullet point is good theme. So,
Yeah.
so like I think of like Pandemic knocks this out
Mm,
of the ballpark, right? Like it's, hey,
yeah.
you need to go save the world from deadly diseases, which is super relevant in this day and age.
Right.
But but like it's interesting, right? It's not trading spices in the Mediterranean as we've joked before, or it's like you're not a 18th century farmer like you are in Agricola, right? Like
Hmm.
the mechanics are there in Agricola, but like the theme, it's just like if you explain that to somebody, it's like I don't want to do that. But it's
Yeah.
like, hey,
Yeah.
like Flashpoint Fire Rescue. It's like, hey, you're a firefighter, like saving a building from burning flames. It's like, okay, like I can get into that. Like that's cool. Or like
Yeah.
Betrayal at House on the Hill. Like it tells a story, and
Yeah.
I think that's a really, especially for gateway games, is just like you probably have to have a pretty solid theme to get people to the table, because like my sister-in-law jokes all the time where she tries to guess the themes of the games that me and my wife are playing because
Hmm.
it's like they're nonsensical basically, right? So it's like, oh, what is this one about? It's like, ooh, this one's about growing trees. And you're just like, that sounds horrible. Like if you explain it like that, and it's just like, oh, okay, yeah. But it's like you said, like Seven Wonders is a great example. It's like, oh, you're building a civilization around the pyramids of Giza, and it's like, oh, okay. Like I
Yeah,
can get behind this. Like I feel this one. So I think theme is really critical to a gateway game.
yeah, for sure. And I think I was thinking a lot about word games in preparation for this episode. So word association games, code names. We've been talking about wavelength. What was the one that you were describing in your? I already forgot
Wavelength,
it. No, no, no. In your table.
blank slate.
Yeah, blank slate. Games like that where really usually they don't really actually have a theme at all. Like Codenames tries to have a theme and it's like kind of goofy, right? It's like, oh, you're a
Yeah.
spy, and everyone's like, ah, whatever, I really don't care. I think so. I think they struggle with that, but they're also for some reason they're approachable anyway. Like people are like, oh, I get like a word association guy played catchphrase or something, so it's not really a big deal. Like
Yeah.
they don't
Yeah.
really need the theme. The thing I think that like word association games struggle the most with is kind of like the second thing I was talking about of generating further interest, because word association games don't
That is hard.
always
Yeah.
feel like a board game.
Yep.
Like I think actually for some reason I feel like Wavelength does a better job of that than Codenames, because I feel like Codenames does just feel like a word association game, and for some reason the fact that there's like the turning dial in Wavelength, I don't know what it is, but to me it just feels like more of what I would
It's
think
like
of
a
a board game
tactical
would be.
feel. Like you get to touch
Yeah,
something. I
yeah,
maybe that's it.
maybe that's it. The interaction, I don't know.
Yeah. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? But it's something that I think overall can be like kind of a hindrance to calling something like Codenames. It's like is Codenames a gateway game? It's like if it is, it's in my mind a bad one because, like I said, it's like catchphrase.
I think that's a really good point. Codenames is a really good game to get
Mm-hmm.
people who don't play games to the table.
Mm-hmm.
Something that I had, which I thought was kind of interesting, was like a cool table presence. Could bring people to the would be an interesting theme for a gateway game. And I was kind of thinking of Everdell in this sense, which Everdell
Yeah,
probably borders on that not a gate. It's not something you want to bring the first play into, but maybe
just from like a
maybe that
complexity
second
standpoint.
play. Yeah, it's it's got worker placement. It's got
Mm-hmm.
tableau building. Like it's got a
Yeah, some
good
card
bit
drafting.
going
Yeah,
on, but it's got this giant tree in the middle of the table where it's like I walk past it, I was like, oh, what is that? Like
yeah,
it's kind of interesting. It kind of draws you in or something like that. And I think this ties in kind of with the theme, but if you can have cool components that go along with it, I think that also introduces you to like a good level of gateway game.
yeah.
That makes
I would
sense.
say that's especially true since again we're trying to like pull people away from your monopolies and risks and clues and those games. Typically, when people have played them, are well. First of all, they were never produced with like high quality. And second of all, they're usually old, right? Like it's like
Yeah.
grandma's version
Yep.
of whatever, and so they don't recognize like, oh, like I can have artwork that exists in Everdell, and I can have like these like heavy metal components,
Yeah.
or weighted like wooden pieces, and it's like, okay, now I feel like I'm actually kind of like like physically interacting with the game in a way that's probably more meaningful.
Yeah. Totally. Totally. Yeah. So I think that the good theme plus the table presence can really start to pull some people in. Are there any other examples that you can think of like cool table presence for board games or for gateway games?
I think Santori. Have you played Santori? The like
Yes.
sort of like Greek. Yeah, it feels like kind of
Santorini.
building.
Yeah.
Santorini. That's it. Santorini.
Yeah.
Which actually I was kind of going back and forth on that game because I think that game. That's not. Let's see. Is that a two-player game?
It is a
I'm trying to
two-player
remember.
game. You can play
And
four,
it
but
is.
it's 90%
Yeah.
played as a two-player game. Yeah.
Right, and I think two-player games overall struggle to be gateway games. Because I think people need to feel like the game night feel like that. That's why we love
Yeah.
the community, and that's why we love the hobby is the game night feel. And two-player games don't give you that, so I think like a game like Santorini will kind of struggle to be a gateway game. But the feeling of like, oh yeah, I'm gonna like physically build with like pieces that can be super rewarding.
Yeah.
Any game that's like tactile, like I don't know if I think Quacks would be a step above a gateway game, but it is like tactile enough to
Yeah.
be like, okay, it doesn't maybe have like a board presence, but it has like a physical interaction presence that's going to be probably rewarding to a new-ish player.
No.
Kings of
Yeah.
Tokyo,
King of Tokyo is a good one.
that's
King
a
of
good like,
Tokyo is a
yeah.
really good gateway game.
And it has this stellar theme where it's like, hey, do you want to be like freaking Godzilla? And
Yeah.
you're like,
Yeah. I do.
yeah,
I want
I
that.
do.
I want that a lot.
Oh, and I could beat up like your like crazy octopus thing. Like, yeah, I want to do that too. Like,
Yeah.
it just sells really easy for like a gateway game.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I really like King of Tokyo. in that sense. Like
Hmm.
it gets them to that next step.
Yeah.
And then like the my next point that I had on or on gateway games, which is gateway games really strive when they are cooperative or semi-cooperative games.
Mm.
Where if you have someone who's played a lot of games playing a competitive game against someone who has not played a lot of games, that can feel very bullying.
Hmm. Yeah, for
Whereas if
sure.
it's a cooperative game, like Pandemic does this well, if you can do like a semi-cooperative game like Wavelength or something like
Hmm.
that, where people feel like they're contributing, but they're not losing by themselves, or they're not winning by themselves, I think that really does elevate the gateway game to the next level, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a really great point, especially because if it is not something like that, it needs to, in my opinion, be something that somebody feels like they at least had a chance of winning. Like I think we
Yeah,
use Seven Wonders as a gateway game sometimes, but it's probably first of all a little bit more complicated than a gateway game should be,
yeah,
and second of
totally.
all, it fails that kind of litmus test of like if I am playing Seven Wonders with all new players, I will win every time. Like I've
Yep.
played too much Seven Wonders. There's not enough luck in it. Like there needs to be more
Yeah.
luck involved. Games that are like simpler, like Azul or Splendor, it's like I will probably still win those because I'm experienced in them, and they that there is an advantage to being experienced. But they're not games where I think the best player necessarily was like guaranteed to win every time. Like there are luck involved in the games, and they're simple enough scoring to where somebody can feel like they have a grasp on it, and maybe they didn't lose because they're just like inexperienced. Like maybe they felt like they were like that close, and that makes them want to play a
Yeah.
second time, and that's really important.
Yeah. I think if you can get someone to say, I want to play that again, you've done good on your gateway game quest, right? So,
Right? Yeah, you
uh,
hooked a fish.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You got
You gave
him.
out the free sample. Now,
Right.
get them coming back.
Yeah, yeah. They subscribed for the 1 month free subscription.
Ah, got them. Huh.
Got him.
So we've talked a lot about like good gateway games, and I think we've kind of hinted at it, but let's explicitly talk about some things that you don't want to see in a gateway game. Like what are
Hmm.
bad qualities of a gateway game? Like over complex is kind of the obvious one, but are there any
Yeah,
other traps that you could fall into when you think that this is a gateway game, but it maybe not actually be a good gateway game?
yeah. I think the we were talking about like kind of like the the co-op competitive feel can be really beneficial to a gateway game, or even just straight like co-op games. Something that I think is a common mistake is like social deduction games where it feels like you are on a team together because you're like one member of a team, but there can be this really dangerous like someone feels like they're out on their own, right? Someone could have a really bad experience being like the
Yep.
chameleon and chameleon.
Yep.
Um, and they're like, I feel overwhelmed and I don't know what to do. Spyfall can kind of do that too, where someone can have a really bad experience in their first time in Spyfall because they like feel like they screw it up in the first time and they don't, they feel alone. They feel like on an island and they feel like everybody else knows what's going on and they're losing because they're the ones that don't. They also, I think, typically like don't they fail on that, like are they generating more interest in the hobby? Typically social deduction games do not have mechanics that are common to other games, and so someone can't say, oh, I really enjoyed this aspect of the game, and then I can't say, well, then you might enjoy this other game, let's try that. There's no like connections that are being made.
Yeah. That's a great point. Anything that kind of singles somebody out
Yeah.
could be a trap,
Mm.
especially if it's the first time that they've played. Like I
Yeah.
think of Betrayal at House on the Hill as a simpler game,
Hmm.
but if it's the first person's time at the table, then you don't necessarily want them to be the betrayer
Yeah.
in Betrayal at House on the Hill,
Yeah,
because
because now
it's
you're like,
like
okay, now go into that other room and read that book by yourself.
exactly, and that's very off-putting.
Yeah.
And so I think you could modify that a little bit to say like social deduction games similar to like Secret Hitler or the Resistance, where even if you are the bad person or the bad person, the
Hmm.
antagonist,
Yeah.
if you have someone on your team at least,
You're not
then
allowed to
it
say
could
that
get a
Hitler is a bad person, by the way.
yeah.
Like you
Oh,
consider the
I was thinking
Nazis as
more
a
of like
bad
the
guy.
Resistance, like the
Oh,
spies,
okay,
right?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. My mind went already to the next game. Yeah,
Yeah.
Hitler is a bad person. I will stand here and defend that point. So, anyways, let there be no confusion where Fantasy and Flight stands on if Hitler was a bad person. So, he was. But like if you could be the antagonist in one of those social deduction games, But on a team, I think that's a
Hmm.
much safer bet than saying, "Hey, you have to deceive everybody else at this table,"
Yeah,
because
for
that's
sure.
hard. That's
That's really
really
tough.
hard to like tell someone to do, and that is, I think, actually worse than a fully competitive game.
Yeah,
So if
I
you're
would
gonna do
agree.
if you're gonna do a gateway game, you either go full competitive, or you go semi cooperative. And if there's a chance that the person that has never played a game before to be on the antagonist side, that someone's there with them,
Hmm. Yeah,
because nothing feels worse than being secluded in a hobby that you're not already inclusive with,
yeah,
right?
for
So
sure, for
so
sure.
I think that's a good point.
Yeah, and I think the good thing about gateway games, like I said, most of the people who are going to listen to this podcast are already in the board game hobby. You probably have a game that you can look back to and say, like, that was the first time I played a board game that was different and I enjoyed it. So you already kind of know what a gateway game is. Most of the time, like, your gateway game will work as a gateway game. You know, like it worked on you. Like it's probably gonna work on somebody else.
Yeah,
Like, so that's a good thing just to like fall back on, is like, if you can, if you don't already own it, just like purchasing whatever was your gateway game, and starting there if you don't know.
but not your gateway game specifically, Dalton. Right? Like you had
That's
a rough. What was your gateway game again?
we talked. I think we talked about in the very first episode that my gateway game was actually Twilight Imperium, and that's not
Which
like
is
me
not
just
a good
being
gateway
shitty.
game.
That's
That is not
that's
a
the
good.
worst. It's the antithesis. It checks out on theme. Like
Oh yeah, hell yeah. Let's and table
it's got a
presence.
great
Like
theme.
it's cool.
Yeah,
Like
table presence
you want to know what's
theme.
going on.
Yeah, but way too complicated. But I don't know, like with my friend group and with where I was in high school, and it was like it hit at a really good time for me. Like it totally worked. But I would never use it as a gateway game for somebody else.
Yeah,
Absolutely not. I think my second game was actually maybe your gateway game. So my like second game was Dominion. Was that your?
that was my gateway game. Yeah,
Yeah, and that one actually does work. I think like Dominion can definitely qualify as a gateway game.
absolutely. And Dominion is probably on the heavier side of gateway games, but when
Yeah.
I think we got into games, that was the gateway game of choice. Yeah. And for people listening to this podcast who play a lot of games, kind of what I like to do when I'm playing with new players, even if it's not necessarily a gateway game, maybe it's the next step from a gateway game, is I like to try out those fringe strategies. So things that I
Yeah.
wouldn't do if it's a highly competitive game, but something that just kind of like seems fun. So like Fool's Gold in Dominion, whereas like if you have two of these Fool's Gold in your hand, you can discard them for like 3 gold or something like that, which like I don't know if that's the exact wording of the card, but it's like something
Yeah. It's
that's like
basically like the second fool's gold counts as like 4 gold or four
yeah or
money or
something.
something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah. Or
Or
oh, I
three, and
was
so you
thinking
have a total
treasure
of four
map.
or something like
I
that.
was thinking a treasure map.
You were thinking
Uh,
treasure map where you can
yeah,
like trash it to get more golds. Yeah.
yeah. So it's like it's probably not the best strategy out there, but it's a lot of fun. And it's like if
Yeah.
you can hit it, and it's like, and that way it's like you don't play the optimal game, but you play the fun game, and that's what
Mm.
you're really trying to get when you have people like at the table for the
Yeah.
first time.
So with that, do you want to hop to recommendations?
Yeah, let's do some recommendations. So I think it's hard to do a low, medium, and high complexity recommendation for gateway games, considering they're all supposed to be low complexity. So Dalton came up with a great idea for recommendations. Dalton, you want to run us through what we're going to do for recommendations this episode?
Yeah, so what we're going to do is we are going to run through the 6 kind of main mechanics that we've covered already in the podcast. So co-op games, deck builders, worker placement, asymmetrical player powers, area control. Oh shoot, I'm missing one.
And cooperative?
Did I not say cooperative? I don't
I
know.
don't know.
I may have already said cooperative.
I've been
Either way,
drinking.
I know we've been drinking. Either way, I don't know. Either way,
We each have 3.
we each have 3. That's the important thing. We each have 3, and we're gonna walk through them. I think this time, do you want to just alternate instead of doing the snake draft thing?
Yeah, let's just alternate. So do you want to start?
Yeah, I'll start us off. So first one I have tonight, we'll start off with cooperative games. We had said in our cooperative games episode that cooperative games typically, and we mentioned tonight, they typically make really good gateway games. And so the one that came to mind for
Totally.
me was yeah. So the one that came to mind to me was Pandemic. I think
Yeah.
that Pandemic is a first of all, it's almost a classic gateway game at this point. Like
Yep.
it's kind of old enough to just like fit as a classic gateway game. There are others that could function well. Mysterium could be one. A couple of Harry Potter Hogwarts Battle, like some other kind of simpler games that could qualify as a gateway game, but I think Pandemic, like you said earlier, it will always bring to the table everyone to the table because it has like this really approachable theme. It has a really short teach. It introduces you though to asymmetrical player powers, to like
Yeah.
kind of different movement on a board, to the idea of working in a cooperative like setting, and honestly like it was one of the it was early on in the games that we bought in college. Like we got like Dead of Winter, Seven Wonders, Pandemic. Like it was early in that kind of like, okay, let's get serious about this kind of phase
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
And I think it just like it works really well for that. It does have like expansions. I think that's probably a waste of time. Like where you would probably go next
Yeah.
if you hooked somebody if you hadn't already played Legacy, like Pandemic Legacy. I think that would be the natural place to like kind of progress to because it starts as a normal Pandemic game, so it's going to be like fairly approachable to them, but then it will add complexity and mechanics in kind of like a way that's like slow and understandable, and it will give you the opportunity to have like kind of a recurring game night with this person and kind of hook them into the hobby that way.
Yeah, that's the best way to hook them. It's just like, hey, you have to come back for at least 11 more games. So or else we cannot continue without you. So guilt
Right.
them in. I guess that's another good point is if you can guilt them into coming back.
That's
That's
the
one
best
way to
to
get
do
more
it.
people to play with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it.
No, I Pandemic is a great. That was my first cooperative game. It was
Yeah.
actually my second game after Dominion, and it teaches you hand management. It's just such a good game, and it is a classic. I think they just put out like the 10th anniversary edition, so like it's been out for a while,
Hmm.
and and now they have 3 legacy games off of it, and
Hmm.
it's like there's a special place for Pandemic in this hobby because it has done
For
a
sure.
lot for this hobby. So
Yeah. Yeah.
so
It's interesting that it's done a lot for this hobby, and I don't think many people would say it's their favorite game.
it
Yeah.
used to be my favorite game,
Yeah,
but it's not my favorite game because it showed me what games could be. Like I don't
for
like
sure.
because it's I like these game. I like Spirit Island more than Pandemic
Yeah,
but I would not like Spirit Island if I had not played Pandemic
for sure. For sure.
because it
And I think a lot of our like mech ratings will probably reflect that, where we've kind of
yeah,
these are going to be games that we've kind of like you use the term grow out of, and I think that that's a good term because it's not that like we're more mature and we play better games now, but
they're
it's just
stepping stones.
yeah, they're stepping stones, and as we've gotten more into the hobby, we enjoy complexity and we enjoy replayability in games, which typically comes from like diversity and strategy, and simpler games often don't have that. And so, Pandemic for me, mechanics ended up at a 7. I do think it's like a mechanically very sound game.
Nice.
Experience ended up at a 6, which is like mostly coming from the fact that it's like your really good first intro to a co-op game. Components ended up at a 4, which I think is fair. I think it probably has room to improve there for an
Yeah.
overall of 5.2. And like I said, I think a lot of times that's where gateway games for me are going to land, where they're kind of in that 5 to 6, like almost average feeling
Yep.
for my personal experience now. But they, like you said, when we first started out, Pandemic would have been like top of the list for us. You know, it would have
Yep.
been
Absolutely.
it would have been like 8s in all the categories or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and that is one of the notes that I had is like these ratings are going to feel low in the sense of
Mhm.
what we normally rate games, but that's just because like we prefer the higher complexity games, and so these may not be as enjoyable for us. There aren't as many decisions to
Mhm.
make, and therefore they're just going to naturally be lower. That does not mean that we don't like these games. Like a 5 is an average in our system, and so
Mhm.
something that scores over a 5 is better than average. So just
For
remember
sure.
that. So
For-
I think that's a great cooperative recommendation. I would never not recommend Pandemic as a gateway game.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
that's a great one.
Absolutely.
So
So, which mechanics are you taking us to next?
I'm gonna go deck builder. So
Okay.
deck builder are our kind of both our gateway games because I don't consider Twilight Imperium a gateway game. Was Dominion.
Yeah,
And I
yeah, for sure.
explicitly did not choose Dominion for this recommendation just because we've talked about it a lot.
Yep.
And this recommendation is actually going to be Quest for El Dorado. So
Oh,
this
nice.
is yeah. So this is actually a newer game to me, which is kind of funny because I do feel like it works as a gateway game, which it's under a 2 weighting rating on Board Game Geek, so it's not
Mhm.
complex, and it kind of incorporates the thing that I like about Dominion, which is a fixed supply. Of it's a deck building fixed supply, and so for Quest for El Dorado, you're moving a person along a map based on the cards that you draw from your deck to try and reach El Dorado first. And this could be going over water, this could be going through sand, this could be going through like forest, and you have to have specific cards in your hand to make it through the water. So maybe like this is like rapids and you need 3 paddles worth to move into this space. And so it's very easy to grasp. It's very like straightforward, and it's a race game, so it's pretty short, which is nice. And it has a fixed supply, so you can do this kind of same thing. The thing that is different is that once, I think there are only 3 cards in each stack of cards you can buy, and once that is gone, then a new stack comes in. So it's kind of a mix of a river and a variable supply, which is a nice introduction to all gateway games. But it's really easy to explain. It's like, hey, in order to move into this space, you have to pay 2 money. In order to move into this space, you have to have 3 machetes in your hand. And it's just kind of like, it introduces trashing. So it's like a very approachable game in that sense, where it's less than an hour. You can play it multiple times and people will pick up on it quickly and understand all the mechanisms needed to understand deck building games.
I think it's a great replacement to Dominion, I guess is the word for
as
a gateway game, because it's basically Dominion with a board. But the good thing about that is it has a better theme. Because Dominion's like, I'm making a feudal realm, I guess. I don't know. Like I'm a midland, like a mid-tier noble. Like that's the theme. Whereas this one's it's like you're on a quest, and it like the cards that you're getting in Dominion, there's a lot of reading of cards and understanding what their interactions mean. And Quest like very much simplifies that. It's like, do you want to travel over water? You need paddles. Like that's it. It's all like a symbol. There's no words, and so it very much like simplifies that. And then, but there's also still like replayability coming from, like you said, that first of all, like the river is going to be different. You're going to be getting different opportunities, but also the board changes. Like the board is modular, and you can set it up for different quests, basically.
And that's a great point.
So you can, like, when you play it again, you're not just like setting the same game up and trying again. Like you actually, the player is like, okay, what did I learn last time, and how do I apply that to this like new setup? I have to make these like different decisions this game than I made last game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's a great point, that the board is modular, so it does require you to make different decisions each game.
Yeah, for sure.
So for mechanics, I had a 6.5. For experience, I had a 7. And components, I had it as 7, just because I love the theme. Like I think like if I strip theme out of this, the components would be a little bit lower. The cards are not full size cards; they're the I don't know, quarter size cards.
Yeah.
The and like the tiles aren't excellent, but like the theme is just, I think it's fun. Just like searching for El Dorado, I think is fun, and so that brings the overall to a 6.8. So it's 0.1% off of nice.
Yeah, off the nice. I do think that the quarter size cards are a weird choice for that game. It's like, why didn't you use a deck builder? Like, why didn't you just make the full size cards?
Especially because it's the standard size of a board game box, right? Like,
you're right.
Just make them bigger.
Just
make them wider. Bo Burnham. Just make it larger. Like 3 people understand that reference, and I love them. So.
All right, moving on from Bo. I have to follow up Bo Burnham now. Thanks, man. It's like our all-time favorite comedian. Man.
Yeah. So what do you got next?
I think next I'm going to go to asymmetrical player powers.
Okay. Yeah. Pandemic again.
Right. Just can I do Pandemic for all 3 of my recommendations? No. My recommendation here would be Tokaido. Have you played Tokaido?
I have. Yeah.
I really like Tokaido. I have it as a mobile app. I've actually never played it with anyone. I've like only played it on like a mobile app.
Yeah. Sorry. Wait. Is Tokaido the one with the panda?
I think there's a. Wait. No.
Like, is it the bamboo one?
No, it's not the bamboo one.
There's Tokaido and Takenoko, and I always get them confused. Tokaido is the one where it's like you're progressing along like the road.
Yes.
And you get food. Okay, yeah. No, I have played that one. I have not played the one with the panda. Sorry.
Oh, I haven't played that one either. So. But I have played Tokaido. So it's a very simple game. So in Tokaido, basically, like you said, you're playing a traveler who is traveling across Japan, like feudal Japan, and you're basically trying to have the best vacation possible. Like that's the idea. Yeah. And so you're trying to visit the most, like buy the most souvenirs, visit the most like scenic locations, eat the best food. Like that's kind of like what you're trying to do. And so over the game is set out as like a road. If there's any traveler at a given location, you can't stop there. And so the way the game will work is there will be like kind of the other travelers will be on the road in front of you, and if they are in locations that you want to be at, you can't stop there. You have to like skip ahead of them, and it basically becomes a set collection game. Where so
Yep.
it introduces set collection as a scoring mechanic. I'm going to try and collect all of the mountain range scenic locations, and if I
Yeah.
do that, if I visit all the mountain ranges, then I get like a certain number of bonus points for doing that. If I collect like one of each type of souvenir, there's like 4 different types of souvenirs. I have to stop at shops to do that. Then like it goes. It has like an increasing scoring mechanism where you get like 1 for the first one, then 3, 5, and 7 points for the last point of the last souvenir in the set. And then you all have to like stop at like an inn for the night that works as like a checkpoint so that all the players restart from the same location, and you do that 4 times. You basically like work over 4 like quote days, which are signified by those checkpoints where you all have to stop at the like inn for the night. And so basically on your turn, all you're doing is moving, and so it's a very simple decision in terms of your action. You know you're going to move, and past that you just have to understand the scoring, but which is like kind of complicated because set collection is always complicated, but it's also a really important game mechanic to understand
Absolutely.
across. Yeah, it's like just a lot of games take advantage of it, so it's stripped of all complexity except for the set collection. And I think that's a good place to kind of invest in complexity. And all of this is now the only thing that's added to that is that you have an asymmetrical player power, right? Which we haven't quite talked about yet, even though it's the recommendation for this category. Where your player power, maybe your person gets like a discounted souvenir, or they collect an additional scenic route every time they go to an inn. They can like pretend that they went to a different like scenic location or something like that. So it's not going to be one of the game breaking player powers, but it is going to give the player just a little bit to do. You know, they're going to be like, okay, I know that this is set collection. I know that there's a lot going on, but you are the souvenir guy. Like that's your thing. You know,
It gives
so
you a
like,
path. Yeah.
it gives you a path, right? It gives you a way through set collection that helps the new player kind of gives them something to focus on. And so I think for that reason, it's a really good introduction to what asymmetrical player power like adds primarily to a game.
I have not played that game in forever, but
Yeah.
I think it also nails the table presence point that we were talking
Absolutely.
about earlier. It is a beautiful game, like because when you're collecting the scenic routes, you have like I don't remember exactly. I think they're like tarot sized cards. Maybe they're standard sized cards of the scenic routes that builds this beautiful scenery, and it's just like I think I don't know if all the editions have it, but the edition that I played with had like the metal coins, and it was just like it was very fun to just like touch it and like feel it and like see it on the table. It has this really long, narrow board, which is pretty cool to see. But yeah, no, that's a great recommendation that I had not thought about for a long time until you just said that name.
Probably because it's not the type of game we would buy, but it is the type of game that like works really well as a gateway game.
Absolutely.
So mechanics overall, I had mechanics at a 6.5, experience at a 6, and components at an 8. Like you were talking about, I think the components is really where this one shines in theme and in the metal coins and in the tarot size cards and all that. So that gives it an overall of 6.6. It's definitely worth having on the shelf as a way to introduce games to new players.
Very nice. Yeah, no, that's a great recommendation that I would have never thought of. So
Awesome.
awesome.
All right, you're up. What mechanic are you tackling next?
So I got the unfortunate pull of worker placement for gateway games. And worker placement is not an easy gateway game, or not an easy genre to provide a gateway game for. Because I think with worker placements is typically pretty heavier games.
Mm-hmm.
So I went with a game. Like I was just trying to find a game, and I like couldn't find one. I finally settled on one, which is not a game I love. I think it's a really good worker placement gateway game. However, it's not a game that I enjoy because I played it a little bit into my board game career, and that's Lords of Waterdeep.
Oh, okay.
So Lords of Waterdeep
Yeah, that's
is
a good option,
game,
actually. That's a really good choice.
yeah, it's a very simple game. Or okay, let me rephrase that. It's not a very simple game. It's a very simple worker placement game. It's a game that introduces the mechanics very well.
Mm-hmm.
In Lords of Waterdeep, you're playing like someone who's paying adventurers to go on quests. So like in D&D, you're going on the quest, and in Lords of Waterdeep, you're playing the person that's sending the adventurers on the quest. It's kind of so it's an interesting theme. It's actually a Dungeons and Dragons game. Like it's branded as that. Uh, but Lords of Waterdeep is a worker placement game where you're trying to find adventurers and send them on quests in order to score victory points and build buildings and all of this good stuff.
Right.
Um, the couple of times I've played, it's fallen a little flat for me, but I think
Mhm.
that is also because I have been a little bit further on and I've enjoyed the more complex worker placement games. And this one introduces the mechanics very well, and that's why it's my recommendation.
Yeah.
It's a great introduction to worker placement.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. I remember playing Lords of Waterdeep, and it was my first worker placement game that I played. And so it was my first. It wasn't even a gateway game, but it was my like intro into worker placement. And I remember realizing like I want to play more worker placement games. Like I didn't know what the mechanic was
Yeah,
called at the
yeah,
time, but it was such a good, clean introduction to it that I was like I instantly became obsessed with this idea of like okay, um, flipping scarcity on its head, right? The idea
yeah.
of like I'm not resource limited, I'm like action limited, where a lot of
Yep,
games are the other way.
yep.
And that was just like such a like when I did it the first time, I was like, oh, like my actions are the things that's valuable. Like in just the way that that made my mind kind of like think through games, I was like super interested in it. But I also like you're saying, I kind of like I graduated out of or from that game into other worker placement games because we didn't own it, so we didn't play like a ton of it.
Yeah,
But I really liked it for that reason. It also doesn't. It has like it has been a long time. Doesn't it have like a secret objective or secret reward system type thing going
yeah.
on?
It does. So it's like there are quests that you send people out on, and based on your secret objective, it's like you want to get so many of this type of quest or so many of this
Mm-hmm.
type of building is another one. So there is a
Right.
little bit of secret objective, which kind of adds to that ambiguity of how many points are being scored at the end of the game, which is
Yeah.
nice. Yeah.
Yeah, and it also it adds sort of like APP. It adds a little bit of direction for new players, right? Where it's like, okay, yes, I know there's a lot you
Which
can
is
do in this
huge. Yeah.
game. Yeah. It's like I know there's a lot you can do in this game, but like here's a specific type of quest for you to like go after, and it gives them that little bit of direction. And so, yeah, I think it's an excellent choice as a gateway game. Do you have a mech rating?
Yeah, I do. So mechanics I added a 5.5. It is slightly above average for me.
Mm-hmm.
It is what it is. It's a worker placement game and it's an introduction to worker placement games.
For
For
sure.
experience, I had a 5.5. I enjoyed the game the second time I played it a lot more than the first time I played it. And
Yeah.
then for components, I had a 7.5. I just think that I think it's a unique theme.
Yeah.
Uh, and the components aren't horrible.
Mm-hmm.
The components, I would even venture to say, are okay. Uh, may I be so bold?
Me,
Um,
really going out on a limb there.
yeah, exactly. But I mean, like
Nelson,
your
this is our
cubes.
professional integrity on the line.
Yeah, I know, and I am willing to lay it on the line. So, but but yeah, so like components are a 7.5. I like the theme. The components could be upgraded, physical components that is,
Sure.
for an overall of a 5.7.
As
So
opposed to the imaginary components.
or the theme. The theme is kind of what I was going against.
I knew what you meant, but I don't know. That sounded really funny.
Damn it.
You're right though. That is a really good theme, especially like going back to bringing in the new players. It's a really good like, hey, do you want to send adventurers on quests? Like it
Yeah.
in a fantasy realm, like it checks out. For sure.
Absolutely, totally.
All right. So back to me. So I have area control / dudes on a map, and
That's a
similar to
hard
your
one.
worker placement. Yeah, similar to your worker placement. I could not think of a good like dudes on a map like example because they're so like if there's a dudes on it has to be like a combat mechanism, and then there's like okay all these like things get involved, and it gets well outside of a 5 minute teach. Right, it becomes a
Oh
very
yeah,
hard
yeah.
gateway game. So I think that mechanism is probably not suited to being a good gateway game. It's also extremely competitive and cutthroat and things that make it just
Yep.
bad as a gateway game. So focusing more on the area control part of that episode, we talked I don't even remember if we talked in that episode about Bosk. I think we did. But
That's a gorgeous game. Oh my
yeah, first
gosh.
of all, really pretty game. You get a squirrel, which is really fun. A big old
Yeah,
clunker squirrel.
absolutely. Yeah.
And Bosk is basically like you're playing the role of like trees, I guess, and you want to like grow trees and be like the prettiest trees and maybe like the most prolific trees. And so basically the way it works, there's like kind of like two phases. There's like a phase where you like sort of like quote like grow your trees, and you like place trees of like different height, and they are like actually different. They're modeled after different types of trees, and they have like different colors. And so the game, as you like place your trees on this board, going back to like table presence, you end up with this 3D board where you have all these like trees that are like kind of growing on it, and then it has a very simple just strictly area control scoring mechanism that's very easy to teach and understand. And then there's kind of a second phase of the game where all your big trees are removed and you are kind of like dropping leaves from them, and they cover a certain amount of the ground. And if you control you're using those leaves to control areas on the board, and if you control enough of them, then you get more points in the kind of the second phase of scoring. Probably once you know how to play, probably like what, a 20-minute game. I mean, very very short.
Yeah, short game.
Yeah, short game. It's basically just an introduction into how area control scoring works, but it is very pretty. I think it checks out the theme just because of the, I guess, aesthetic, and because of the 3D components.
Absolutely, it brings you into the table. I
Yeah,
like.
it's very inviting.
Yeah, at Gen Con, like I walked by and I was like, "Ooh, what is that?" Like that is
Mm-hmm.
literally what got me to purchase that game. Is like, ooh, like
Yeah,
let me see what that is. so,
yeah, and that's a really good point. Just like the walk by factor, almost, where like and someone could stand there, and you could like, as other people are taking their turn, you could like explain like, okay, here's how you play this game, and you could just like very quickly say like, so here's what we're trying to do, so I think I'm going to do this, and then like they could look and be like, oh, I could do that, and then you could be like, you want to play, and all of a sudden you got them, right?
exactly. Yeah,
You
totally.
can structure this whole situation just to hook them in, and now you got them.
Free samples.
Yeah, for sure, free samples. So it's another game where like experienced players, like there's just not enough depth and content for us to really enjoy it over multiple plays. But I know that like you and I have used it as like a filler game. Again, when like we're waiting for another table to finish on a game night, like it's very naturally fit in
Yeah,
that spot of like, yeah, let's play a game of Bosk. Why not? And like we'll be talking over top of it most of the time. It doesn't require all of our attention. And then like we score it, and we're like, oh, like I guess I lost. But like we had a good time
yeah,
doing it.
exactly. I think Bosk is a phenomenal recommendation for area control, especially in a category that is so hard to come up with gateway games for. So
Yeah, cool.
yeah,
So yeah,
that's
so
good.
mech rating for that one. Mechanics,
Yeah,
I have it a 6. Experience, I have it a 5. You'll notice a lot of our rankings are hanging
yeah.
out in this like 6 to 5. It's like it's just good enough for us to call it an average game or even a good game. Components, I do have it a 7. That could even maybe be increased a little bit because it does have like the nice 3D components. It gives you like this pretty wood squirrel that you get to place on the board. The leaves and the colors are really pretty. So components potentially could go up from there. Overall, that brings us to a 5.7.
Yeah, no, it's a great recommendation, and absolutely, I would recommend that for anyone that's interested in a area control game.
For sure.
It's a good one. Yeah.
For sure.
So final recommendation goes to me,
Take us
right?
home. I think this
So
is the
take us
right.
home.
This is the category that I forgot when I was
Okay,
listing them
so this
earlier.
is engine building.
Engine building. That's I don't think I said
Engine
engine building.
building is the one that is also like so many games incorporate engine building
Yeah.
into their core mechanics, which is nice because if you can find a sweet gateway game, it really opens the door to a lot of more, stepping stone games. So
Yeah.
like I think
Absolutely. I
of
think
like,
these are probably some of the strongest gateway games in that sense, in terms of
yeah,
the second
absolutely.
leading into the second game. Yeah.
So you recommended Century Spice Road in our engine building episode for our low complexity, and I recommended Race for the Galaxy in our low
Mm-hmm.
complexity, which is nice because I would have recommended Century Spice Road
Mm.
in this slot, but you already took that because I thought that you were going to take Splendor. I really thought that you were going to recommend Splendor for engine building.
Yeah.
And so I am recommending Splendor because I think that Splendor is one of the better gateway games out there. Not
Mm-hmm.
just for engine building, but for any gateway game. I think that Splendor does a really good job of having interesting components in the sense of like you have these wooden chips. It's not like the greatest components I've ever seen in my life.
Mm-hmm.
They're just like cards. But like what I really like about Splendor is that I would still enjoy playing Splendor today
Yeah.
because it's got this kind of feel where it makes it feel like there are interesting decisions going on. It's a fully competitive game. Like there's no semi-cooperative elements in this, but it's got a sense of simplicity but complexity at the same time, where it's
Hmm.
like the decisions that you make are simple, but the strategy that you have has long-term consequences. And I
Hmm.
think that especially if you are able to kind of introduce a new player and like play multiple games with them, they will grow to understand that. And I
Hmm.
think that that is exactly what you need in an engine building game to get you to that next stepping stone game for engine building. So Splendor, you're playing, you're like gathering gems and
Yeah.
turns, and like the gems are like these components of like poker chips, and you're using these gems to like hire or like get buildings or nobles to score you victory points at the end of the game.
Hmm.
And what the engine building aspect comes in is like you can take gems during your turn, and then you can. I think they're like buildings. I don't quite remember, but I think they're like buildings. They're like, hey, like I'm building this building, which automatically gives me a white gem every single turn.
Hmm.
And then, so now if you have 2 white gem chips and a white gem building, you have 3 white gems that you can then spend to buy a better building. Or you can buy a noble, which is the victory points that you're looking for.
Hmm.
And so the the elements are there to like really push for the engine building. It's like, hey, like you can go for the short term gains, but you'll quickly realize that just having a lot of resources is not the winning strategy. You need to figure out how to convert those resources into better resources or convert those better resources into victory points.
Yeah.
And I
And
think
it
that,
also like it forces you to have to address this trade-off between like am I going to invest in my engine or invest in victory points? Because
yep,
I have also seen new players grab like tier 2 and even tier 3 cards early, like reserve them and spend the game trying to buy them, you know? And over the course of the game realize that in the time they spent trying to just buy this single thing worth like 3 victory points, other players have like established themselves an engine and they haven't bought any victory points yet, but all of a sudden they're buying like 1, 2, 3, 4, like victory point cards like very quickly, and all of a sudden like their engine is taken
absolutely.
off, and
Yep.
so like it forces players to kind of like see that trade off in action, I guess, and that becomes obviously a very critical element in like all engine building games is that like that decision.
When to figure out when to ramp
Yeah, when
is
to ramp. Yeah.
huge, and when to like understand. And if you can translate that into other games, it's a great game to get you to the next level.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
which is a little unfortunate because I played Splendor after I played a lot of engine building games.
Yeah. Right.
So
I have thought that same thing of like, man, I wish I found Splendor like earlier in my career, I guess.
yeah,
Um, but I think that Splendor's potentially like the strongest recommendation on this list. I have had, like you said, for two reasons. One, like you said, that I continue to enjoy Splendor, and it's maybe one of the only
yep,
ones on this list that I consistently enjoy, even though I'm an experienced gamer. And then the second would be it's the only game that I know of that like I have introduced to someone as a gateway game. They have then bought and then introduced to someone else as like a gateway game. You know what I
nice.
mean? Like the person that I
That's
infected,
so satisfying.
right?
The
Exactly, it
person
really
that
is.
you have infected, I love it.
Yeah, the person that I infected bought Splendor and then infected more people and then they bought Splendor. Like I have like
That's awesome.
Splendor like grandchildren by this point and maybe even great grandchildren.
Oh, I love that metaphor.
Yeah. So and I mean one other thing about Splendor of like the games that we've talked about, it may also be the cheapest. Like Splendor's like $20 at Target.
Yeah, yeah, it's super
Like
accessible, super cheap,
yeah,
easy to find.
for sure. For sure.
Totally. Yeah. So hopping into my mech rating for Splendor, I have mechanics at a 6.5, experience at a 6, and components at a 4. And I think that the reason the components is so low is because of the stupid size of the box of Splendor. And
I have heard this so many times.
yeah, and I don't know. I'm sure I've talked about it before on the podcast, but like Splendor has the stupidest size of box I've ever seen in my life. Where like I've seen things on like online of like 3D printed boxes for Splendor, which like cut the box size down to like like 2 decks of cards size,
Hmm.
and yet it has the size of a box of like half of a normal game, and it just like drives me insane.
It's because people want
Like,
to buy bigger games. They think that they have more value. So like marketing wise, it makes
and that's
sense.
dumb. People are dumb. I will die on this hill. But
I
no,
agree with you.
and I understand people want the bigger game
Yeah.
boxes, like, but whatever. Like, I have limited space on my shelf,
And
I
that's
want
what
to
determines how many board games I can buy.
exactly, and I want to buy more games, and therefore Splinter should be a smaller box. Prove me wrong. But yeah, that brings the overall to 6.0. So,
Yeah.
it's a good game. I've only played it, I don't know, probably 5 times or less.
Hmm.
Like right around 5 times. So it's like one of those games that I want to play more of. And it's
Hmm.
definitely like, if I had the game, it would be something that I would bring out to the table with new players
Yeah, for sure.
all the time.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think if you have it, I would tend away from 4 player, just only because there can be a lot of downtime. It can be a little bit long.
I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah, and new players are sensitive to downtime, I think, and not consciously even, but new players will feel bored in a game because like they aren't thinking about always their turn when it's not their turn, and so they're just like when it gets to their turn they'll play. And so 4 new players, or I guess you and 3 new players in a 4-player game of Splendor, it can be very long, and they can start to like lose interest, Um,
Yeah, totally.
so that'd be my one
Yeah.
my one advice, I guess, on Splendor.
Yeah. And that's a really good point.
So I think that
You
wraps
got
us up
anything
then.
else? Yeah.
No,
think so.
that's our 6 recommendations.
That's our 6 recommendations.
Promised, tried and true.
For gateway games. So yeah,
games.
I think gateway games are so important to this hobby because like it is a hobby that just gets better with more people that are in it. And I think
Hmm.
I don't know if that's true with all hobbies, but like I definitely think that I want to see more people at game nights. I want to see more people at Gen Con. I want to see more people playing board games because this is such a great experience that we're having that I want to share with more people, and it just gets better with more people. So use these 6 recommendations to bring your non-board game friends into the cult. I mean the group to play more games.
It's not a cult.
It's not a cult, I promise. I think. Can you Google the definition of a cult real quick? Let me. um, but yeah, no, I love introducing people to games, and I think that these are great recommendations to do so. So
For sure, I'm looking forward to the phase in the game night, like our monthly game night, where like we have to have one table dedicated to gateway games. You know what I mean?
exactly,
At least,
yeah,
kind of thing. Of like, hey, we're getting like some like newish players, or people who are members, or bringing in some friends. Like, let's make sure that there's at least one table dedicated to that. I'm excited for that phase.
yeah. That'll be really exciting. Maybe we'll get some of these recommendations to the table at that point. So
I got Splendor to the table last time we played.
oh yeah.
So I'm hanging my hat on that.
Hey, it's Nelson with a little post-edit note. If you are listening to this on the day it came out or the day after it came out, which is January 14th, then our next game night is actually this weekend. And so if you're free, we'd love to have you come play some games with us on Tabletop Simulator. Thanks. If you haven't, join the game nights.
Join game night.
Because yeah, we have a lot of fun. We break up into multiple tables and play whatever. We send out a little survey beforehand. So if you want to play a game, sign up for the game that you want to play, and then we'll get you signed up and we'll play those. We do those monthly, so it's kind of exciting to play some new games with people, and even if you don't have the physical copy, you get to play those games. So
Absolutely, and it's great during a pandemic when you don't have like regular game nights. It's great to be able to play online.
Exactly, yeah. Those are normally organized over Discord. So if you're not a member of our Discord, go ahead and join our Discord channel. You can find that on our website or in our Instagram link, like in our bio. And if you can find us on any other social media, that'd be Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, any of that stuff. You can find us where we post pictures, fun stuff about games, and all of that good stuff. So if you're not following us, go ahead and give us a follow. And other than that, cheers, buddy.
Cheers.